ain't shifting like me. You ain't.
So, you know, in the car world, there's always going to be a lot of speculation on where we're going as a community because obviously we can't seem to make a decision. At one point or another, luxury cars used to be the staple and the aspirations for the average American and across the world. Very few markets have no luxury markets in their segment, but that's to be said. And I was watching a video last week on the Drive's YouTube channel, which I'll leave a link in the description below, but it was a video about Lincoln and where they're going and if there'll be something in the next couple of years. And I thought it'd be a great idea to talk about if Lincoln is going to make it through 2025. What's up, guys? My name is Chris, and welcome to The Breakdown, where we talk about everything cars, news, and reviews. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. So I got to looking into Lincoln, and for any of you who do not know, if you've been living under a rock for the last 100 years, Lincoln has been the premier brand of Ford and has offered many American staples such as the Town Car and Continental, and we can even argue the Aviator and the Navigator. But it seems as though Lincoln is on its decline down, selling 50% in 2023, selling roughly 56,000 units, as opposed to a whopping 131,000 units back in 2007. And it seems as though as in the late 2000s, we begin to see Lincoln really struggle to find not only their identity, but refine their footing in the automotive space. And I want to get into that today. So with that being said, in today's video, we will be exploring, will Lincoln make it through 2025? The answer may not shock you. With that being said, stick around and stay tuned because you are now watching The Breakdown. You know, every time I get on this channel and I get to looking, I always find something new. So just last week, The Drive, which is a huge automotive YouTube channel with about 1.9 million followers, did a review of Lincoln and where they were in the automotive space. And of course, y'all know me, I got to thinking, how long will they last? So I won't give you guys a lot of historical context. I think it's very easy to say. Plus, The Drive has already done the work for me, so why reinvent the wheel? So Lincoln has been around since 1917, and they began their journey building aircraft motors and then eventually evolving into a luxury company. And for the last 100+ years, they have done an amazing job at displaying that Ford is capable of wrapping themselves up with a nice black and white suit and making sure that we know what American luxury is. Now, many of us, when we tend to think about Lincoln, is typically something along the lines of, I don't know, this. And that's not all Lincoln is known for, but Lincoln has always been the standard of luxury next to Cadillac, standing strong, and in some cases next to Chrysler, as what we believe to be the pinnacle of the American car manufacturer. The Lincoln lineup, however, has been a bit, I don't know, drab. And partly that's because we have a few issues that need to be discussed today. In terms of Lincoln and where it currently is, as I said before, they have sold roughly about 56,000 units as of 2023, and this has been on a mild decline since 2005. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that Lincoln, for all intents and purposes, one of their first issues that they currently are struggling with is branding in terms of who they are targeting and what they are trying to target. For the last 20 years, Lincoln has really struggled to capture the younger audience, or if you will, Gen Z. Gen Z would have a lot of fun with some of these discontinued car brands, not to say that Lincoln will be discontinued soon, but the Gen Z market is the incoming buyers market as millennials like myself are beginning to age out of that arena, and we're beginning to move on to other purchases or big spending purchases, including those luxury goods. Back in 2000, there was a study done that really understood the entire scope of what Lincoln was trying to do, as they recognized back in 1998 that they had a bit of a problem. You see, in order for luxury car companies to be able to survive, there has to be something for a lot of the consumers that are in their current mass market to be able to aspire to. When people get a Toyota, they often aspire for a Lexus. For when people aspire for a Chevy, they used to aspire for a Cadillac. When it comes to those other manufacturers such as BMW, Mercedes, and Volvo, and all those other things, many people don't really look up to Volvo, but I digress. There becomes a thing that people look forward to, and that is luxury items. And so Lincoln, unlike many of the other manufacturers, has kind of lost their prestige to the younger buyers, because it would seem as though back in that series when they studied them, they found out that a lot of younger buyers did not exactly identify with a lot of the designs in a lot of the motifs that were being presented by Ford. And so what they ended up doing in order to kind of make themselves a little more distinguishable was to focus on that. However, the housing crisis of 2008 really changed all of that. At one point or another, Ford was pretty much a conglomerate of different things, and their Premium Automotive Group, or PAG, was a small venture that they tried to do, but eventually the housing crisis would force them to sell off all of their shares, leaving only Lincoln to help carry the torch as Mercury was discontinued, and Jaguar, Land Rover, Aston Martin, Volvo, and Mazda were all sold off. The problem here, though, is that with all of those different brands basically divesting and being dissolved, there was no room for Lincoln to be understood and identified as a top-tier luxury manufacturer, despite it being able to carry that torch for almost 100 years. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all this. One of the reasons why Gen Z buyers don't really identify outside of design elements is also price. Lincoln commands an exorbitantly high price for what it is. Now, if you don't know, for the last 5 to 6 years, Ford has done a huge overhaul in trying to get rid of a lot of their cars, their coupes, or whatever, and just exclusively focusing on SUVs and pickup trucks. And in the Lincoln lineup, they got rid of the NKZ and made a flop of a rollout for the Continental, leaving just the Lincoln Nautilus, Aviator, Navigator, and Corsair. And so none of those really are within the price range of most Gen Z buyers, as most of us are struggling to make beyond $75,000 as the median income. The next thing that Lincoln really struggles with is the relationship with China. And the thing is if you haven't seen my video about the Lincoln Aviator now coming out and being made in China, go check that out. I did it last year. And in that video, I really explained how a lot of Lincoln's core has become either exported or globalized to be for other markets. Now, China at one point or another was not selling Lincolns per se up until 2014. And before that, they were only using a licensed rework. Of course, to my point, most Gen Zs and millennials did not want that because it looked like grandpa's car. As they begin to reshape themselves in the Chinese market, sales have mildly grown and are beginning to become a bigger point for China, as they have grown by 3.7 to 624,000 units. But that was pretty much a slow uptick for them. But being that many of these Lincolns are being made in either Canada and or China and not in the US, kind of presents an issue, because we as Americans would like to buy American luxury if we can afford it. And to be commanding $50,000+ for something that is supposed to be made here in the United States but is not, is absolutely egregious. I just learned that word. The other thing is that in addition to the Chinese market really overtaking the Lincolns as we know it and we used to know it, is that also Lincoln is really struggling in design. And this isn't new. This has been happening for the last 20-25 years, as again, we know the Lincoln Town Car to kind of be the precedence of Lincoln. Quite frankly, if you know anything about the Panther V8, they're amazing, incredibly reliable, but reliability and stylishness does not go one and the same. And Lincoln unfortunately cannot really get their footing. Now, in their newest iteration of trucks and SUVs now are clean, stylishly designed, howsoever. They just don't have that je ne sais quoi, that that many of the other automakers, such as Mercedes, such as BMW, and such as even Volvo, which I keep going back to because of their Swedish and Chinese heritage. But the thing is that those type of trucks and SUVs and even Land Rover are displaying some level of stylishness and give a rather modern take on an old classic. Now, by no way, shape, or form am I saying that Lincoln is a terrible design car, because I think they're absolutely gorgeous for what they offer. The materials and the quality are upscale and unmatched in terms of refinement. Howsoever, there's a different level of appreciation for Generation Z as opposed to Gen Xers and Millennials. And so, unfortunately, because of their stylishness and their antique looking materials, a lot of the younger buyers can't seem to get with it, in addition to the $50,000 price tag. Now, the last thing is this, is that Lincoln, in terms of where they're going, they can't seem to find a really good footing or winning formula. You see, it used to be at one point you bought American luxury because it was giving you a lot of value for a small amount of money. By no shape or form has Cadillac, Lincoln, and even Chrysler to some degree been cheap. They've always been expensive, but they've always given you a lot of value. The Germans always give you performance. The Japanese always give you reliability and practicality as well as the Koreans have always given you technology. Unfortunately, like Cadillac, there's not really anything that Lincoln offers that really appeals to the younger buyers. In fact, as an American company, Tesla has truly changed the game as far as what Gen Z wants. And even though they're going through their struggles right now, it would be absurd to say that they have not made their footing by being not only a tech car company, but also a luxury tech car company. And with the introduction of the Model S, that completely overhauled and changed the way that we perceived American luxury. Now, granted, the Teslas are not American luxury to the same degree that Cadillac or Lincoln is, but these car companies are really struggling to appeal to these younger buyers, and it's absolutely necessary that they do so, because if we ain't buying them, they gotta buy them. I mean, it's kind of 1-2. I mean, let's be honest.
Because I'm not buying it.
But the thing is that as they have no winning formula like the Japanese, like the Germans, like the Koreans, it is very obvious that Lincoln is really struggling to make their way. Now, getting into the meat and potatoes of this video. Will Lincoln last past 2025? From a trajectory standpoint, in terms of sales, Lincoln has done an incredible job of trying to maintain themselves with the fleet, the rental fleets, alongside your favorite car company, like I stay on their ass, Tesla. The rental fleets offer a bulk deal, if you will, for Ford to be able to distribute those cars. And for limousines and for many really nice Toros, Lincoln always makes a really, really good host vehicle for anybody who's traveling. The shift from internal combustion engines into electrification, which is a very hot topic, and I have to continue to talk about this, is that Lincoln is rehashing themselves to make way. In fact, the Ford Edge plant, which was pretty much ending and discontinuing as of this year, is becoming and being overhauled to make more space for the Lincoln SUVs that are going to be electrified. With that, it is evident that Ford is using Lincoln as a vessel into electrification. But the thing is that we as the car industry are having some aversions towards electrification. Now, of course, we all know about infrastructure, we all know about charging times, all that good stuff. But with Tesla being the struggling car company, but being the market leader, it almost suggests whether or not we will truly go over into the electrification or if we will shift more towards hybrids as a more conservative choice. If Ford continues to focus its efforts in its electrification vehicles and begin to put all of that energy into Lincoln, leaving Ford to kind of hide behind Lincoln, then at some point or another, Lincoln will eventually become the sacrifice if electric vehicles do not go well. So the big question is will Lincoln survive 2025? It is likely, but it is extremely volatile. And while their sales have not dropped dramatically, 50% could be attributed to supply chain and all that good. But the truth is that as more demand for different kinds of cars and cheaper cars, there really is a space that is lowering for luxury car brands, and only the top of the top will continue to survive and thrive in this environment. And unfortunately, like Cadillac, Lincoln is indeed struggling. With that being said, leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about Lincoln, despite all of their efforts to be able to continue to try to appeal to the younger market. They just can't seem to get it right. And if you think they will make it indeed past 2025. With that being said, until the next video, I will see you guys later.